They always say about MicroConf, what they call the hallway track is the best bit, and that's the bit between the sessions, lunches, breakfasts in the evening time. Just wandering around and talking to people is the best bit. And those founder-to-founder things help with that as well, because if you see a group of people talking that you've never met before, but one of them in there is somebody that you've had a 7-minute conversation with earlier that day, it's easy to get in there and then start talking to those people. It gives you an in.
Hello and welcome to the Gross Profit Podcast. My name is James Kennedy. I'm the CEO and co-founder at procurementexpress.com. It's a software that takes the hassle out of managing your company's purchasing, even though I've said that dozens of times, I still mess it up from time to time, but there you go. And we do that with magical features. Today, I am joined by Martin Judd. I can say long-time friend now, Martin. I think it's been a few years since I met you, probably... I'm going to say eight or...
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
The reason we met is that we are sort of co-attendees at a regular conference called MicroConf. Over the years, it has been a big part of our story at Procurement Express, certainly. We get inspiration and, sometimes running a software business online is a lonely business. But when I get to go once a year, hang out with these guys, and we all get to nerd out on running an online business. So today, Martin and myself are going to do a bit of review of the latest Mic conference that was in Lisbon. So Martin, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, James. I'm looking forward to having a chat about MicroConf. I always try to make some time to review my notes, etc. after the conference.
I always forget to make notes, but then I can just leverage the fact that you have some and hopefully have the same benefit. So tell us a bit more about yourself, Martin, and your business before we get going, just so people have a bit of context.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the founder and CEO, if you like. All that sounds a bit grand for the size of my company, but I founded Kids Club HQ about 8 years ago. So what we say about ourselves is that we help out of school clubs cut down their admin time and get paid on time. And what that means for people that don't know what out of school clubs are is the childcare that happens before and after school for working parents generally. Those are our customers. So they might be schools, childcare companies, charities, even sports coaches, all sorts of things like that. And we provide them with an online booking and administration system. So it takes away a lot of the admin they have to do day to day. And also does things like reminds parents when they haven't paid to pay and that sort of thing. So it's been going about 8 years now. We've got a team there are 4 of us full time, and then occasional contractors, etc. You
reminded me of something there, because I think that was one trend that I saw straight away, which was there's the people who've chosen to grow a team, or chosen might be a bit of a stretch actually, and the people who've made a success with a smaller team. And what strikes me is it's not often correlative to the revenue. Like you have some people, they would be, sometimes 2 or 1-person teams or 3 or 4-person teams but that's no relation to the size of the revenue. The revenue can be absolutely fantastic, And sometimes I wonder back, like we've gone to about 20 now, which is reasonable for our size. But I wonder, did we just default into that? Like, did we consciously decide, we want 20 is the right number side, or did we just do that because that's what you do when you get to such and such revenue level? Yeah.
It's really interesting that actually. Yeah. I mean, I've grown to where we are now, mainly because of the needs of our customers, I guess. So our customers generally aren't particularly technical. They need quite a lot of hand holding. So we need somebody to do support full time, where I know a lot of smaller companies our size might just have the founder doing support because they get 2 or 3 emails a day. So we've kind of just grown into that as in what we need on a day-to-day basis.
Because I guess we're kind of OG MicroConf attendees now at this stage. And I met people who are early on. One guy I met actually, shout out to Ralph, and he's doing really, really well revenue wise, and it's just him and his girlfriend running it. And he was like asking me, you got 20 people, I'd love to do that. And I said, hold your horses there. There's different ways you can go here. Maybe you want 20 people, like I love my team and all the rest, but maybe maybe you and your girlfriend on a shitload of cash is also a nice option. Just think about what you want to end up with, So listen, it was in Lisbon this year. Let's do the basics. I thought the venue was great. MicroConf has brought me to Las Vegas, Dubrovnik, Barcelona, Malta.
Yeah.
Have you been to any others?
The only other one that springs to mind is Prague. The first two MicroConfs in Europe were both in Prague, which is an amazing city.
I thought Lisbon was a hit, though. I thought it worked really well. The AV was really good, which is always a thing for me, which sounds boring. But it was really cool. I think we were both on the boat. We did a boat tour of the coast.
So no, I missed that one. I did the walking tour actually around the old town.
So the event is really aimed at, I mean, you call it MicroConf, so I call it self-effacing. I mean, you can call it bootstrapped, self-funded. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite term for non-venture backed?
I tend to say bootstrapped because that's what I've always said. But I think the way they tend to say it these days is, what is it? Bootstrapped or mostly bootstrapped. So some of them have taken some investment, but it's generally not somebody that's taken lots and lots of investment as a startup, high growth kind of thing, is it? These days, I think more and more the attendees are all in some stage of growth. So they have a business that's been going for a while and they're growing it. In MicroConf Europe's of past, sometimes you may have even maybe not a 50-50 split, but quite a few people who are just going along to get inspiration and looking for the business idea, etc. And that's changed over the years, which I think from a purely selfish point of view has made it a better conference because pretty much everyone you speak to can give you some advice or can at least understand the problems you're facing, etc.
Well, the reason I like it is it strips out nothing that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with raising money, but people who are raising money need to sell and they need to sell hard. And at other events I've been to, there's a lot of selling going on. Like, it's like, tell me about your business. And next thing it's like, we are working on changing the world with the next, like, it's just all this stuff, Whereas your more typical response at MicroConf is like, oh, it's going okay, but I'm really frustrated with this, this thing, or like it gets a lot more down and dirty with sort of whatever. It's just a lot of sort of very practical stuff. Like the thing I talked to Tomas, who runs a SaaS business in Germany, and he was like, well, for product management, I take my designers and I skill them up as product managers because it's much better for them. It's easier for them to draw what it should be like from a user perspective than it is for, if you get a programmer to do that, they just build what's possible as opposed to what's usable. And that was stuff like that you just don't get if you haven't, people aren't actually doing something because they have nothing to talk about other than a field of dreams. And B, you can actually something practical you can use day to day,
My customers tend to be what some people refer to as like prosumers, where they don't behave exactly like businesses, but they don't behave exactly like consumers as well, but they're kind of in the middle there. So they're very price sensitive. They buy mostly as a consumer would buy, except for our bigger customers who are more like sort of proper businesses, inverted commas. And I spoke to one of the guys there that actually did one of the attendee talks, a guy called Will from Nearcut. And they sell to barbers. So they've got a very similar solution to ours, around scheduling and appointment booking and that sort of thing for barbers and customer management. And some of the things that he does were really, really blew my mind. Things that you just not told not to do, but kind of things that people frown upon maybe, or say, oh, that will never work and that sort of thing. A great example is like a 3-month free trial. Nobody ever would say that's a good idea. But actually, customers like ours, they tend to stick around. Once they've got a product that works for them, they don't really want to switch. So they're just going to keep it. Unless you do something dramatically bad, then they're gonna hang around. So why not give a 3-month trial? Because they're going to stay around for the next 5-10 years. It's things like that are fascinating, really interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that advice tends to change over time. Like it used to be, credit card upfront trials only. That was the way to go. And then suddenly, oh no, let people in and give them a free thing. And what was taken as gospel changes. I don't know what that's about, but I think sometimes I find myself offering advice unsolicited, and it's because I'm just working on that at the moment. Like I'm excited about it, but actually I haven't really proved it out. It's more like I'm trying to convince myself this is what you should do, like, and I think a lot of people do that. I definitely find myself saying, oh yeah, you should call the customer within 3 minutes of them signing up. And then, realizing actually that makes no impact whatsoever to their conversion rate, but hey, I thought it was right at the time. Sorry, whoever I said that to. So,
yeah, I mean, it is difficult. It is difficult. You do get absorbed in what you're working on, don't you? But I think you can distill everything here down and then maybe come up with some good ideas for your own business to at least have a go at,
Okay, well, let's get into a couple of talks. Which ones stood out for you? What are in your notes that really made an impact?
So actually, there were several that made an impact on or a lasting impression on me, which I'm certainly going to go back to. One that I'll just briefly mention was one about frameworks and systems, which Michelle did. So that was about using frameworks to help you make decisions, and then systems to sort of make sure those decisions are executed properly. So that's a really good thing to think about. Is often we get, or I certainly get, lost in trying to make a decision because there are too many options, or I've not enough time, or whatever. Whereas if you have a framework to help you make that decision, you don't then, it's not your responsibility anymore. It's the framework's responsibility. So you let the framework decide, and then you need to put your systems in place to actually make sure you follow through with that decision once it's done. So that was a really good talk. But the one I was going to highlight was by Rob Walling, about content marketing, basically.
Yeah.
I think, what did he call it? Don't teach a baby calculus. And the idea generally was target the content that you write. So this is around, obviously, content marketing, articles, etc., that you do on your website to try and attract people and convince them that you're the right solution for them. So he's talking about, if you imagine your marketing funnel, and people who arrive on your website can be in different states of awareness, if you like, about the product that you're selling, and even the market that you're in. And I think he came up with 5 different stages of awareness. So one is unaware, where they don't actually even know that there's a solution out there for their problem, or actually unaware is they don't even know there's a problem. So they're carrying on with their business day to day, and they just don't know there's a problem at all. And then there's people that are problem aware, who are aware that what they're doing isn't efficient or isn't right, and they could be doing it better. Then the next stage is people that are solution aware. So they've identified they've got a problem, and they also know that there is a solution out there. So for example, my customers might know that there are booking systems out there, but they haven't actually investigated them. Then you've got product aware, where the potential customer knows actually what the products are that solve that problem. And then finally, most aware. So most aware was kind of the bottom level of the funnel. So those are the people that are most likely to be ready to buy the product. And they'll probably know of your product and your competitors, and also be evaluating them at the same time. And that, looking at the funnel that way, was really, really helpful, I thought. And I think a lot of people in the room I spoke to afterwards as well were the same as me, where most of us aim our content probably a bit higher up the funnel than we should do. So we're writing general articles to get eyeballs on our website, when actually they're probably not going to convert particularly quickly, because they're just looking around, and that content might not work as well as you want it to.
Sure.
And the crux of Rob's talk really was that we should be focusing content on the most aware prospects, so those that are ready, or at least comparing products, ready to buy. So I found that really useful.
I mean, I've come across something similar to that before. There's on YouTube, there's a very good channel called the SaaS Sales Method, and they take the same thing, so they make it like a grid, with 5 steps, so problem unaware, problem aware, solution aware, and what's the bottom one?
Products aware, and then most aware.
Most aware, yeah. And then on the top, they put like video, written, audio, webinar, that sort of thing, right. And his sort of thinking is that certain people want to consume different types of content in different ways, So he had a way of mapping out your content strategy, which was, okay, for example, what we'll do with this, for example, this podcast itself is, we're not trying to sell Procurement Express here. We're just sort of covering topics that we're relevant, which I would call branding. So trying to add value to the audience, very broad, hardly anyone who's listening to this would ever need our software, but it doesn't really matter. It's just adding value. And then,
Sure.
and then what we do is we take this video and the audio, and then we create a blog post out of it. And then we roll that down. So that would be the top row. And then below that, then you have like, by the time you get to solution aware, then it's comparison, which he also mentioned, right? He mentioned alternative to website pages, and
yeah,
there was another type which I didn't totally get. He talked alternative twos, and do you remember the other type?
So I've written down a list in my notes of the different types that he had, different types of content for the most aware, for those customers looking for most aware, and that's kind of versus pages, which is kind of like your alternative to, and so I'll just list them out. So he talks about at this stage, at the most aware stage, we should be talking about features of the product, because the customer knows what the benefits are of using the product like this, but it's the specific details that they're interested in at this point. Knowledge-based articles, alternative to and versus pages, as we talked about. So long-form demos was interesting to me. So long-form video demos, that sort of thing. Case studies and white papers. One of the things he mentioned about alternative to pages, which makes a lot of sense, is that if you're just starting out, then alternative pages are a great way to get you into that sphere sort of thing, because people might be searching for your competitors' products. And if you've got an alternative to page, then that will raise your profile in their eyes potentially. So that's quite a good one if you're just starting out, I think.
Yeah, April Dunford is big on that. So she is a queen of positioning, let's call her that. And she has a very good talk. I saw her once about choosing a toilet, which is quite amusing. And she goes through taking it from their perspective of your customer. They don't know what the hell all these toilets do. I thought they had one job, but no, it turns out there's the toilet 3000 and there's the toilet with extra, and helping your customer figure out, hey, like, for example, we don't do inventory. You shouldn't use Procurement Express if you have a business with inventory in it. Just tell them that so they can skip on and figure out which solutions should,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I always struggle though with bringing it down. Like, what's the connection? Yeah, I get that logically, but then, does that top of funnel stuff ever come down the funnel? Like, I agree. Just start at the very bottom, which I guess even includes like AdWords and ad copy and the most high intent stuff, and work out from there.
Well, there's the whole thing about however many touches it is that the customer needs to have with you before they recognize you, sort of thing. Is it 8 touches or something? I can't remember what the actual number is, but they have to see you around so many times. So I think you still need to do that top of funnel stuff as well. But if you're short on time, short on resources, then probably just focus on most aware and do as much of that as you can. And talking about ads, remarketing ads can be quite creepy with people following you around the internet with ads. But I guess if you're doing that sort of thing on the most aware, then that person is already probably fairly focused on finding a solution. So maybe retargeting ads like that could work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the camp of like, give me better ads. Don't give me less ads, give me better ads, and clicking the GDPR button, I'm always opting in because I'm like, I want better ads. I want stuff that I'm actually looking for. They're there to help me. Sophie Oxley from thisissophie.com, which I thought was a great domain name. I thought her talk was great because it stung. It stung hard. And the central point of her talk, which I took away, and be interesting to see what you took away from it, which was that basically you do one thing for your customers. You're known for one thing, and us as engineers would wish that we could just keep adding features, and we always have this fallacy that we just need one more feature to try and help us break through to the next level of growth. And of course, that's our happy place, fiddling away with the features in the dark room at night. Yeah, but she hit it on the nail on the head. She's like, actually, most people, I don't know how you feel about your product, but in our product, definitely approvals, man. I mean, we have so many features, but actually, you just want to be able to, that Oliver Twist moment where you just want to get approval from your boss without having to look them in the eye. Can I buy this paint so I can just do my job? That's basically what we do. That's 90% of it. And we did that from like the third week in business. And no matter how much we want to hang on the side of that, that's still the biggest thing a lot of people are looking for.
I find it difficult to identify a single thing. There are 2 particular things that people buy the product for. One of them is registers. They need to know which children are in when, and that needs to be accurate. And the other thing is the automated billing. So being able to bill parents for the sessions they've had for their kids. So it's kind of two things, but that's all wrapped up together because, without the booking, you can't have the register. So it's all one thing really. But yeah, all the additional things that you'd like to bolt onto the edges that, like you say, that us developers like to look at. And, if I just implement this one feature, we'll get 100 more customers or something, but it's never that true, is it?
Product management is the hardest thing, like especially now with AI tools coming along, making the program you still need to be able to program, but you can get a lot further, a lot quicker. The hard part, I feel like now, is actually understanding what people want and giving it to them. It sounds simple, but super hard,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else have you got? Who else did you like?
So one of the things that the whole AI trend has, I've kind of had it in the corner of my eye. I've not paid too much attention to it because I know it's one of those rabbit holes that I could disappear down and not reappear for years. But is it Einar Volset? I can never remember how to pronounce his first name, but he gave a great talk on, it was called Leveraging AI for Profitable Lead Generation. And it was fascinating what you're able to do with ChatGPT, basically. So on the paid version of ChatGPT, there's a thing called advanced data analysis. And what Einar was saying was basically that if you just go if you're trying to find, for example, a list of prospects that might be a good fit for your company, you've probably got attributes about your existing customers that tell you that they are a good fit for your company. And so you can use that data that you've already got, pull it into one of these models, these advanced data analysis models, and ChatGPT will basically generate you an engine where you can put in some particular properties about a company that might be a prospect of yours and tell you whether they're a good fit or not, something along those lines. So it's modeling on your existing data to allow you to predict future incidents, if you like. It was amazing. It's really difficult to explain. I don't know if you've got a better way of explaining that, but it's certainly a very powerful tool.
Well, I had two takeaways from that. One was because people were asking him, what words do you use, or what's the, because the whole thing is about prompt engineering now. It's the cool thing. And his general advice, which was, listen, treat it like a conversation. Start out and just ask the model, hey, I've got this data. Do you think you can help me figure out, which customers are going to convert more, or, just a high level topic. And then it'll give you advice on what to do next. It says, I suggest this statistical model or whatever. Would you like me to do that? And so that was the first thing, which was actually just don't overthink it. Just treat it like a conversation. Like he called it a second year, a stats major or whatever. And then the second thing was the time he put into it. Like I played around with that, but I didn't. He spent like a good solid, sounds like 2 or 3 days solid getting the wording right, which I have not done that. And he showed us like the prompts at the end, which sort of got to his result. And he used it for figuring out which SaaS companies do 5 to 10 million in revenue. I think that was his sort of what he was using.
Yeah, that's right. He was looking for, he had a list of companies that did a certain amount of revenue, and then another list which was different attributes of those same companies. And ChatGPT basically merged those data sets together to give him a predictive model for other companies that might fit his requirements. Yeah, it was really powerful. And I think you're right, what you're saying about using the prompt. So he was talking about how he'd say, I've got this data. How can I do this? How can I solve this problem? And then ChatGPT would teach him. And it's like you're saying, you use it to teach you how to do it. So it would tell him, well, you could use this, you could do this. It sounds like this is the problem you're trying to solve. So then you go, I want to do that. Tell me more about that. And then it tells you more and tells you how to do it. And then eventually you submit the data and it gives you the answer. It was, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was cool. So I think our last pick, we both picked out Sherry Walling, right? As the talk. Sherry is married to Rob, which I guess Rob is the founder of the conference and sort of long-time OG guru for startup for bootstrapping companies. And Sherry has built a niche in mentoring. And she's a clinical psychologist, as I understand it, and a doctorate in psychology anyway. And she's been for a long time giving talks about mental health she doesn't call it this way, mental health for nerds. I'm going to call it the way. It was. I thought it was one of our best talks. I've seen a number of talks. What was your takeaway from it?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, she was kind of the crux of the conversation was really about motivation, wasn't it? She was kind of saying that the audience, i.e., bootstrappers or partially funded bootstrappers, whatever you want to call them, most of them, based on the feedback for previous MicroConfs, the sorts of questions, the sorts of things they were saying and questions they were asking related around two different topics, like freedom and impact. So that's what people's aims were, getting freedom and impact. And then she started to talk about motivation to do that. And it was interesting so I've always just thought motivation is motivation, but she kind of broke it down to two sort of strands. There's a micro motivation, which is where you're just trying to actually sit at your desk and do something. Mm-hmm. And then the macro motivation, which is your drive, your mission, if you like, to do the big thing that you're trying to do, which was really interesting to see that broken down like that. And she had little tips about ways to sort of try and manage the different levels of motivation. So, your micro motivation, where you're just trying to sit down and get on with a particular piece of work, maybe go for a walk, maybe do a bit of meditation, lots of different little things like that might help you get into that motivation back. And then the macro motivation is, you maybe need to take a bit of a retreat, sit back, look at your goals, look at your aims, and actually just write some things down on paper, do some planning, things like that, to try and get that big level motivation.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I mean, it feels like the Yanks are great at motivation. It seems like so effortless for them. It's almost like it's just bursting out of bed in the morning, and then to get up at 5, doing their ice bath, and then going for a run, and then meditating,
doing your affirmations.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think us Europeans struggle with that a bit more. I thought this is kind of the $1 million question. Like this morning, today, for example, I had a day planned out, and then when it came to doing an aversive task in the middle of my day, I'm like, maybe I'll see if Priscilla wants to go for a cup of coffee. Like and like it's forget the big goals. Like I thought the big goals. I mean, I probably do wish I set bigger goals, and probably because you underestimate what you do in a year and overestimate what you do in a week, type of thing.
Yeah,
and that's probably true. So, but then it feels like calling your shots is hard. Like, hey, I want to, I don't know, like you want to get 100,000 customers. Like it just seems like, oh, what if I'm wrong? I don't do it, then people are going to laugh at me, and all these sort of. In South Africa, they call them kopworms, headworms, like little.
That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. A headworm. Yeah, it just sits there all the time, wiggling away. I have that same problem where I've blocked out some time. I'm going to do this thing, and I don't know whether it's the fear of not completing it in the time allowed, the time I've allocated, or what it is. But sometimes I find it really difficult to jump into those tasks. She also spoke about the different types of people. So your motivation is potentially tied to the type of person you are. So if you're, I think one of the terms is like a craftsperson. So if you're like a software developer, then you want to sit down and write code and write features and things like that. And that's what gets you going, and that's what gets you motivated. So as the sort of the macro type motivation, where you're trying to look at the big picture, you should probably try and focus on making sure that you're spending your time doing the things that give you motivation, and maybe the other things offload to other people in your team, or hire some other people to do those things. And that rang a chord as well. I mean, I've recently read Dan Martell's book, which I think you've read as well, the Buy Back Your Time. And that's got a lot of that sort of thing in there as well. It's just basically outsource everything you don't want to do, and it sounds easy. It's not easy, but it's an ongoing aim for me to try and get that sort of thing done.
The thing I got from his book, the biggest one, was like 80. It's a bit cliche, but he says 80% as good is 100% awesome, which is his way of saying, if you scope it out to someone else, sometimes you scope something out to somebody else and it costs you more time. It just backfires. It's like, oh, I didn't expect that properly, or I didn't think about X, Y, or Z, or whatever. And then those are the times you're like, oh, why bother? But I think there's a skill. I've been working with Hey Mesh, for 3 months now, just over 3 months. And it's definitely a thing you gotta work with. Like it's a skill. Working with an assistant is a learned skill. Like, okay, this sort of task is not going to work. That sort of task, awesome.
That is something I need to adopt more. Is that 80% done or 80% good is 100% awesome, because that is one of the big things that stops me handing things over. Is I just think in my head, they're never going to do it as well as I can. They don't know all the context that I know. They're never going to be able to do it. Yeah. And I just need to get over that, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap it up by talking about the dreaded founder by founder, shall we?
Oh, my word. Yeah. Yeah. Forced networking.
Forced networking for introverts. It's maybe you should explain what it was, because I'm getting the cringe just thinking about it.
It sounds like a train wreck, but the idea is, I think it was 7 minutes. So it's like speed dating. If anyone is about speed dating, where you get 7 minutes and 7 minutes per person. So the idea was you had to go and find someone else in the room that you hadn't already spoken to, and you had 7 minutes to introduce yourself, your business. And they gave you some prompter questions if you wanted some help in terms of what to talk about. But basically, talk to somebody you've never met before. And then you've got 7 minutes to give your side of the thing, and the other person to question you. And then it swaps. They play a big alarm sound, and then you swap over and the person has a go. And it does sound terrible. I always feel, before you do it. But actually, when you do it and you get talking to somebody, it's not too bad. It's pretty good.
I agree 100%. Like when I saw it come up on screen, my heart sank to my boots straight away. And then, you know what? I talked to two people I wouldn't talk to otherwise. And it was actually interesting. And I picked up something practical. And 7 minutes is just the right amount of time, I think, because almost anybody can talk for 7 minutes, especially 3.5 each. It's like ridiculous. So it's great. And they should... I hope they don't, but they should do more of it.
It is good, but you don't want it. Yeah, you don't want it. You don't want it to happen before it happens. It's good. And those founder-to-founder things help with that as well, because if you see a group of people talking that you've never met before, but one of them in there is somebody that you've had a 7-minute conversation with earlier that day, it's easy to get in there and then start talking to those people. It gives you an in.
Yeah, no, we need it. It's good. Mm-hmm. All right, I think we'll wrap it up. Anything else Perfect. I've missed? Would you recommend people check out MicroConf?
Yeah, definitely check out MicroConf. If you're in the sort of stage of your bootstrapped or growing, if you're a startup with millions of funding, it's probably not the right place for you. But if you're building a business, then it's great to go along and talk to everybody. And if nothing else, you're just in a room full or a bar full, wherever it is that you end up, of people who know what you're talking about. And if I get nothing else out of it, I get an immense amount of inspiration, and it keeps me going till Christmas at least.
Yeah. Well, we can go. When's the next one? April in Denver? Is it this time? It's in the next one.
I can't remember where it is. Yeah. I haven't been to the one in the US yet. I've only been to the European ones.
Yeah. The European one, I've been to both. I think the European one is it's a sweet spot now. US one got quite big last time I went anyway. But there's enough, it's mature enough, like you said, with enough people running really nice businesses to be useful, and not so big that it's a sea of people. So I was actually surprised how many people there were there this year. It was quite fun. Yeah, it's really good. All right, Martin. So how can people reach out to you if they want to get more goodness from... Yeah,
well, if they, I'm on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. So I'm Martin_Judd on there. That's probably the best way. If people want to email me as well, that's fine. It's martin@kidsclubhq.co.uk.
And so listen, I'll tell you one thing about this podcasting I haven't figured out is how to finish it up. I'm always like, so that's it. See you later. But I'm not going to see them later. Like I'm still looking for my catchphrase or awkward pause or what. Like, how do you finish your podcast? You're a podcaster.
So we usually just say something like, oh, great to talk to you. See you next time, or something like that. And then say cheers. And that's off you go. You know, it's very British kind of bye. No, you say bye first. No, you say bye. It's like a bit like that at the end. So we're the same exactly. Never know how to finish it.
Well, the trope here in Dublin is people don't say, when they're hanging up on the phone, they go bye. I don't know if you guys do that, but they go bye. No one wants to be the one to say bye last. So they're like, putting the thing down. So maybe I'll finish up with bye everyone.